Hi everyone, this is Matt from Scope Labs. Today we are in North London. We're going to see a friend of ours, Mikey Sorbello. He's an amazing drummer, also producer, songwriter, and total gear geek. So what we're going to do today is we're going to discuss the way he records drums, what his setup is, how he uses it to create his own sounds, and also we're going to dive in and see how he implemented or is implementing the Periscope in his mic collection to create the sound palette that he loves and uses on a daily basis. So let's go and have a look at it.
How do I get my big drum sounds? Well, my drum's huge. So I've like 24 kick, 14, 16, sometimes 18. My cymbals are quite big too. But I have some of the biggest sounds I've ever got from small drums as well. Shallow drums, actual small drums. A lot of times sound has got to do with slower vibrations. So big sometimes doesn't mean big. It's about slower. You know, I like to think about the room that I'm in and I try and play to the room. Don't hit them too hard unless I'm doing something live. If I'm live, see you later, I'm hitting there. I'm going for it. Sometimes if you want to get a really big, low, chunky sound, I will literally be sitting on something like, you know. I like to produce rhythm. So my part is to make sure the underlying currents of music are feeling good. Like, I try not to think of myself as like a drummer or a percussionist. I try and think of myself as like a rhythmist. I like the idea of groove and things not just being straight up meat and potatoes all the time. I like to kind of make feel. So I started very simple, and then over the last couple of years I've been, you know, collecting my gear and my rig. In the far corner, attached to my room permanently, is my Scope Lab Periscope. That is always plugged in and is like an integral part. It lives in my studio. It's just always on. It's always on channel 4 here. The thing with the Periscope I love is that it has its parameters. They're built in and I can play to it. The attack that the microphone creates is, you can notice it immediately, you know? You're like, when you hit a snare and you've got it, and the kick drum. What I love about it is where it sits, in the information it collects, it sits perfectly with kick and snare. It's like, you don't need to separate them, you can do kick and snare together and it picks them up equally as well at the same time. 9 times out of 10, it ends up being the glue and the magic in the recording. Whether it's me recording some John Bonham style, like stairwell sounding recording, I can get that with the Periscope. I know how I can blend that in to my mix. The core part of my rig is my Orion 32, and that does all my conversion. And then as far as preamps go, I run ISAs, the Focusrite ISA. But they've been phenomenal. They're so clean, they're so beefy, they're just so underrated. Down from that, I've got a mixture of Cappy pre's. I use the VP26s, which I love. Just a couple of Clark Technique EQs, you know, nothing super expensive. For my toms, I use the Pro MPA2, which is very cheap and cheerful tube pre, but on my toms, I really rate it. That's my hardware side. You know, I like the idea of just sculpting sounds with my preamps and to be able to manipulate the aggression, I guess, of the microphone. Microphone-wise, I have the vintage Sennheiser 421s on my toms. Snare, I'm currently using a vintage Bayer 201 on the snare. Hats, I'll go between Bayer 260, the M260 ribbon, which is a single ribbon of the 160. But at the moment, I've just got this guy, which has been great. It's just the 452, actually, not the 451. But these were like a release very like early on, and they just basically, there was some power thing that the 451 could do that this couldn't do. So this just only, it runs on, it's a very nerdy story, but it just runs on Phantom, and they're great. Same thing, C1 capsules. Overhead, I have some Beebs, stereo ribbons, the Reslo sounds from the 50s, which have been refitted by X-Audio. So they've been re-ribboned and the transformers have been upgraded to just be a little bit beefier, and they're great. Sony C47, which is like a fat condenser, somewhere between like Sony's version between the 67 and 87, 47, something like that anyway. I'll reverse engineer an idea for you. So like, you have an MP3, and when you create an MP3, you take away information. Every time I take the Periscope out of a mix, I feel like I'm taking away information. I feel like I'm taking away some magic and some glue. And then every time I unmute it, it's like, right. It's like, you can't really put your finger on it, but it's just magic, you know?